Hello. Perfect. Great. Hopefully my computer will chill out a little bit. Fan's going crazy. And we'll hide my camera in a few minutes to look at the GemCutStudio. Hello everybody. Hello Ken and Lisa and Karen and Al Gold and Chris. Nice to see you all here. I'll close this door here. So I thought today would be just going through some of the basics of, maybe I need a better external mic. Increases when I talk. I do, my computer fan was going crazy. It's starting to calm down now. Maybe that'll help the static, hopefully. Kind of a background noise. Desktop. Okay. And I'm testing out the OBS desktop streaming service. I haven't used it before, so this is kind of new to me. I went through and set up a bunch of stuff a while ago, but never used it. Let's see, we'll hide that. Maybe that'll help if I'm gone. And we'll just look at Well, this is GemCutStudio. Unfortunately, when I click away from OBS, the chat disappears. Let's try. We'll try one thing before I. Oh, I'd rather just do something rather than mess with it too much. I'll have to pull you up on my phone so I can look at the chat while I do stuff, because it goes away on OBS when I click out. Just gotta find my screen now. There. Yeah, I can hear the fuzz that you're talking about now. Yeah, doublets take a long time, from what I understand. A lot of people don't like making them because they're kind of a pain for some people. Hide that. So anyway, half an hour late, but this is GemCutStudio. This is a pay-for program. It's $99 for a non. The license doesn't expire once you buy it, which is nice. You don't have to buy a subscription or anything. And there are supposedly going to be some pretty cool updates coming in the hopefully near future with some better like shading and maybe bicolor material, sort of modeling that better. But this is the default view when you open up GemCutStudio. And what I think my plan was today was to kind of go through the various features of GemCutStudio that I am aware of anyway. I'm definitely not an expert, but I've used it a few times and designed a couple of stones. And so I know the basics. And I thought I'd share that, and we can run through and maybe make a round design or something today. So when you start off, you have a block. This is your rough, and this is the render that will appear to better show how it might look in real life. And over here are your instructions, and all of these three windows are expandable, and you can expand them, and there's new features as you expand them if you click on the boxes on the side. So we can choose a lot of properties of our material here. The default refractive index is for quartz at 1.54. So if you're just, and I'm not good at designing for quartz, so I have a bunch of YAG, so I usually scroll down and choose a different material to work with. GemCutStudio has some built-in materials like apatite and peridot, the typical ones. But some of these, like the luag, that is not a default material in GemCutStudio. A lot of these are from a text file that you can modify in the GemCutStudio parameters. And it still looks like a red square because this is all windowed, basically. This red is my windowing color. So in order to see anything, we need to make some changes. My YAG is kind of light purple, so I'll change it to that. You can see it's still red down here, a little bit purplish as I rotate it. But we need to throw on some facets if we want to see anything down there in the render. Yeah, Karen, this is the pay-for-it studio. There is a free version, GemCAD, which is Windows only, which is why I don't have it, because I have a Mac, and I don't want to run a virtual system. But this one is in development and being supported still, whereas GemCAD it's not going to be updated. There's not going to make any changes to it in the future, which is why it's free, because they're done with it, basically. And from what I understand, sometimes GemCAD can be a little fiddly, whereas this has pretty much everything all in one. Where, like we'll get to it in a little bit, but there's like light rays that you can test out to see where your light's going to go in the stone after you facet it. So our default, you can choose index gears. These are all the index gears that you can put on your faceting machine. I only have a 96, so I only designed for a 96, but if you have other ones, or you want to do if you want to do a pentagon or something, then you need to do something like an 80 index gear, and you want to design in that. See ya, Algold. And another thing about GemCutStudio is it does have a 30-day free trial, full functionality. You can do anything someone that paid for it can do for 30 days. So you can save files, you can modify, open files, export to print. And so that's really nice to be able to learn and see, like, do I really want to buy this, instead of having only like 10 features that you can try. And so since we have a 96 index gear, we'll skip mode for now, but our default 0/96 is highlighted, and we can either, when we're designing for our facets, we can either rotate. So this is kind of like rotating your index gear. You can, if you want to cut in on the 8th index, then you would switch over to 8, and then you would cut it in. We're going to leave it at that. And then symmetry and mirror are the next stages. So you can do anywhere from 1 to like 24 symmetry, I think it is. But we'll cut in a simple 45-degree facet here just to show, you can do. So that's it's basically an asymmetrical facet. Like if you were cutting in a stone, this is the facet that you would make. And symmetry basically just gets you where you want to go faster. So if you are planning to do a round and you need like 8 facets all in the same angle, then we'll jump up to 2 and you cut in opposite, and then 3 and 4. So now we're making a box there, and then as we go, it adds more and more facets. So we now have 8 facets at this angle. And I'll jump back to a lower number just to show the mirroring better. Mirroring, so at a symmetry of 4, we have one of our facets is at 96, and then it divides the rest of the indexes by 4. So we get over here 96, 24, 48, 72. And that's our 4 facets divided amongst the index gears that we have. If we mirror that, then it's going to be mirrored on either side of each one of those facets. So if we do a mirror of 1, you can see here we're at 96. That's our sort of our center point for this individual facet, but we're not cutting in a 96 anymore. We're cutting 1 index off on either side. So it's basically like +1, -1. And you can see down here, it's now gone, instead of 96, we have 95 and 1. And basically, as you increase the mirror, the distance between those facets increase. So if we're 4, then instead of 96, we're at 92 and 4. I don't know if that makes sense, but maybe. So if we, and you can also type in, instead of scrolling, you can type in if you select the number. So if I want to change this to be perpendicular, then I can type in 24, and that'll change that facet to be perpendicular. Hi, Josh. Let's see, so, I don't know, I think it's a lot easier, maybe simpler to make a round, so I'm going to do a simple 12-sided, or 12-facet round, I guess. We'll start with that. And you can see, so I'm at 96 here. If I go and in my pavilion 1, we're at 45 degrees, and I'm at 96, 8, 16, 24, or so on. If I type in 8 over here, then that doesn't change any of these numbers because that's still one of the indexes that you're working on. It's still divided by the equal number as you go around. But if you scroll around, then you can see I can position these facets anywhere I want to. We'll reset that to 96. So that's a 45-degree facet, and that's a fine starting point. And for changing the angles, you can either change the slider over here, and you can see that changes the number up here, or you can just type in a number. So if you have exact numbers that you want to recreate, say, then you can work off of that. So we'll just go a little shallower, and I don't know, change that to, sometimes it's just fun to throw random numbers in. So I have a new angle, new, see what that does. There we go, see what this does. 42, so we can change the depth. We can manually go down until our planes meet the stone, which these are sort of ghost representations of the planes that you're going to be cutting in. So you can go down until they start to come in. There's a shortcut as well, where if you click on jump, then it will jump to the next meet point, basically. So that's usually indicated by this little diamond here. And so we can jump, and you can see it jumped to that facet, and then the next facet that it would jump to is this one down here. Maybe you want that, maybe you don't. Maybe that's probably too deep for our purposes, so we'll leave it at that. And you can see in we have a rough pavilion, I guess, but we're still in a block. So if we want to cut our girdle, then we need to change this to be perpendicular. So we can go anywhere from 0 to 90. 90 is your girdle. And we'll go back to 12 and reset that. Reset everything back to kind of the default there. Then it's going to hit jump, and it'll make it around, basically. So I'll do that manually just to show as we come in. So we're in a 12 symmetry, and we're cutting in. And you can cut in as much as you want. You can overcut terribly and make a little pencil. But obviously you want to cut into where you need to. So I'm going to jump so it meets that facet there, or you can eyeball it, but it's a lot easier and better to make sure that they meet precisely using the jump feature. There's also a fine feature where it will move it very slightly one way or the other if you want to be fiddly about it. But suddenly down here in the render we have a stone. There's no crown on it yet, but you can see it's kind of light purplish. And you can see the design, the weird angles that I threw in there coming into play. We're kind of asymmetrical. This is probably not a great design. But if we just build off of that, you can go from these two buttons, select whether you're designing for the pavilion or the crown. So if we're done with the pavilion, we can go to the crown. If you double click on any of these images, then that flips you to wherever you're working on. So if I go back to the pavilion and then double click, then it switches to the pavilion and kind of resets that view. But we'll go to the crown, and the first thing you want to do is level your girdle, or establish your girdle. And you can make notes as well with all this. So this would be like cut or establish stone size. And this is like set temporary point, center point. And this would be meet G1, P1. So that says that you want to meet pavilion 1 and the girdle at the girdle, basically. You could also say cut to center point. But anyway, so back to this. So we have our 12-fold symmetry, so we have an even number of facets all around. We've got our girdle now, and you can just eyeball this. And you can also resize this later. There is an option for, can you see the menus that I'm pulling up? Like there's a resize girdle option in the menu. But I clicked on resize girdle from the edit menu, and you can make that a percentage or just kind of eyeball it and scroll it up and down, and that won't affect your any other facets. It just affects the girdle width. So you can do like 4% is a okay number to start with. So we have our starting stone establishing meets there, and since I don't normally have a plan when I design something, I just kind of throw random numbers out. Let's see, maybe make it divisible by 12. Oh, change the angle, so we're cutting in. So our first crown 1 facet was 37, so we need to go shallower than that from here on out pretty much, for the most part. And you can see as I cut that in, I'm still cutting in on the same indexes as some of the other facets, so it makes a straight line over here, but we're mirrored, so it throws off some of the other ones. I mean, you can make anything with these. See ya, Josh. And I can rotate this so you can see how it looks as maybe you like that look better, or you want it to be really askew, or you can change these as you go and just make an infinite number of changes, obviously. But we'll jump down to the girdle there. So you can see down here in the render, this red color is my windowing color, as I mentioned, which means that light is passing through the stone in the corners and in the very middle right now. But we can rotate it around a little bit. This is YAG, so it has some dispersion. You can see it models the dispersion as well, which I may want to turn that off so I save some CPU processing power so I don't burn my fan. And then we'll go to a little shallower. Oop, I didn't cut that in. We'll go. So I had changed my angle too much, and now my girdle is cut away here, so I have to raise the height to come back and save it. There you go. It's kind of like a shamrock almost. So now let's see, we've got 4. I kind of want to come across here maybe and kind of make those into triangles. See if I can do that. That would still be, let's see. So that would be 36, and then those are 26. Let's see. Change that to shallower. Scroll that down so I can make it just a block there, I guess. But if I rotate it more like that, oop, went too far. And then I can make something big like this, and then 0 is your table, and there you go, there's a stone. It's pretty simple. That's our table. These are our little star facets. These are our main facets, and these would be our break facets, I guess. Establishing the girdle. And then we have a very relatively simple pavilion. It's maybe a little asymmetrical. It's not quite meet point, because meet point is like everything comes to a point somewhere. So we can adjust this a little bit maybe and try to get it, I don't know, do something, or make it weirder, who knows. But now that we have a stone, we you want to look at how your stone performs. So you can do that manually by going to the render and just kind of moving it around. But there's shortcuts that we can use, like in the edit menu, there's tools. So we can come to tools and go to tilt performance, and that will show our stone tilting up and down and left and right. And usually 15 degrees or so is pretty good for how far you go. If you go, you can go all the way to 90 degrees or something, but I'm not going to do that. And you can see our brightness is about 80%. We have windowing about 20%. It's not the best stone, like I said. There's a lot of windowing around the outside edges there. But you can see we do have some sparkle, and maybe some of that windowing would just lighten the stone along the edges, which could be interesting as well. There's lots of different optical effects you can choose. But say if you're not happy with the stone, then you can go, one of the things you can try, besides manually adjusting everything, is going to Tools and Manual Optimizer. And this will show you a grid of different sizes of your stone based on the crown and the pavilion range. So you can increase or decrease your crown and pavilion just by clicking on a button here. So we have our stone, and then this is our default at 100% of both. If we keep the crown you change going up and down, and the pavilion you change going left and right. So if we keep our crown the same, but make our pavilion, let's see, I'll move this to the side so you can see what changes when I click over here. So that made our pavilion 20% smaller. And you can see it increased our brightness. We're close to mid-90s in the center there, and our windowing dropped down to 5% when we're looking at it straight down. So that's better. And yeah, so it's free for a month, and then you pay. A month is a long time, though. Just gotta start your trial around when you think you're gonna have lots of time to play with it. So I'm decreasing the compromise to making your pavilion or your crown really shallow is that it makes the stone brighter, but sometimes at the expense of light play and dispersion and all that, because it becomes basically just a reflector. GemCutStudio is $99 for a one-time license, and the developer is really responsive. If you have any troubles or if you lose your key or something, he has all your he'll keep the records, so he'll just send you a new one or something if you need it. And I think you can use that same key on multiple computers. It's not like a one-time use only thing. So if you get a new computer, you don't have to buy a new key or anything. But so since I don't want to go too shallow on this one, so I think I'll just do something like this where it becomes a trade-off of how much you change versus what you're getting back. So I can make this stone 10% smaller in the pavilion and 20% smaller in the crown and make it really shallow, and it increases it to that, but is that worth the trade-off of other changes? And so I applied that small change, and you can see it changed our angles. We were at 45, and now we're at 42, basically. And one of the things I like to do is just change that back to 42. It's not going to make any difference when you actually cut it, that 0.01. And this makes it easier for someone to read. And let's see, so we have a stone. If we want to look at it in other other materials, like if we go down to quartz, this is going to window for sure because of the critical angle of quartz is 41, so we're going to be below that with this Pavilion 2 here. But if you go to your render window and make that big, you can change your material, and we'll go, you can do anything from fluorite to cinnabar and moissanite, but we'll get our quartz here. So this is the default view. I double clicked on the view to make it default, so we're looking at it head on, and you can see where red is windowing, so we're losing light in the middle of the stone, which is, if you saw my commercial cut video, that's not something that you want. Oh yeah, I don't know about you guys, but my live is a little bit delayed from what I see on my screen, so sorry if my chat is delayed, or if my responses are delayed to your chats. I think that's one of the problems with a streaming service like OBS, where it can be a little bit delayed. But since we're in quartz, say you want to be in quartz, then that would be something where you would go back in maybe and try the manual optimizer to increase those angles to get back so you're not windowing in the middle of your stone. We just had to increase by 10% the pavilion, and that got us back to at least not windowing in the middle. So you can do it that way. It doesn't always work for all designs, but could be a quick way to make an easy change. So we can change our material. You can just slide the refractive index if you want, so you can see how it looks on a sliding scale from fluorite to we're about YAG here, and then we're approaching diamond and then moissanite. And you can see we get windowing as we go up because the angles aren't optimized for really high indexes as well either. So I designed it for YAG or whatever. And you can change your dispersion. This is locked in with the material that you have, but you can change it manually if you want to see what it would look like in a really highly dispersive stone. I'm not going to do that because that takes up a lot of processing power. Actually, I think I'll get rid of that for now, so we save a little. Maybe give my fans a break. And change stone color, clarity, and there's a whole lot of options down here. Render options, so low resolution, high resolution. This is for low resolution is when you're just kind of moving and clicking around like this. High resolution, you can export, and you can record an animation down here. Number of bounces might be the maximum that it will model. And there's other lighting models that you can do. I haven't played with this too much, but some people like other ones. I like the random. I think that gives a pretty good representation of what it looks like in real life. But you can make your own lighting model, which I haven't done. And my background color for GemCutStudio, slide this around so you can see I can change that. If you want to look at it on a totally black background, you can do that. I have it a slightly off green just because I don't design in a lot of green stones, or at least like not light green like this. And you can use a separate window color, which if we do that, so we have our window here. If you don't have that selected, then you won't see it, and it just shows the background color. Which sometimes this is good for designing a stone, because if you don't focus on the windowing as you go. But I like to keep it on just so I don't forget. And since I usually use other people's designs. And head shadow is sort of these shadows when you're looking at a stone, the reflecting of your head and your face in the stone can darken it, and that's a way to model that. And we have our A stone. If we like this design, then we can save it as something. And that could just be our test. I have a system of name and then author, whoever designed it. and we can change lots of things about, you can call this, maybe we'll call this like the stream. You can credit the authors, whoever made it, add some notes, set your refractive index range, a size range if it works, if you think it's going to work better for, sorry, my phone. If you think it's going to work better in a small stone versus a large stone, maybe you say you only want it to go up to 10 millimeters or something, or you can set a round, like we're kind of round, but, or add footers. So this is a streaming design, and this is design for YAG. So I set those, and you can print using Control P or Option P, whatever you have for your system. And this is the export that it will give you. So it's your typical facet design diagram, your name or your title, whoever designed it, that header designed for YAG, so people know right offhand, or you can add it in the comments down here. This is a good place to put like, oh, this was designed for this and this, it works in this. But it's a very simple design, but as you saw, you can get pretty good performance from a relatively simple design. There's only, where's the facets? 59 facets, so it's kind of like a round brilliant design in terms of number of facets, but it's a totally different look. And if anybody has any questions, I'll see if I can think, oh yeah, the light path viewer, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. So there's lots of, the tools are pretty cool, where you can do things like a size yield calculator. If you have an 8mm YAG rod that you're cutting, you can type this in using the specific gravity of YAG or something close to it. We'll just do, I guess, Hessenite. And with your girdle, actually we'll do, with a girdle, the total height will be just over 5mm. So you know that you need at least a 5mm long piece of rod to cut an 8mm wide stone. And that's measured, I think, from flat, or 96 to 48. I guess that's a good question. I think it's measured from this side, 96 to 48. So if you have a triangular piece, then it would be sort of from like a point to a flat. But that's a pretty cool tool to have if you want to cut it in something else, then you can change it. And sometimes it doesn't update, like it didn't update there, I think. Or there's this light path viewer if you want to get really intense. And this gives a line drawing of your stone. And it's clear on the inside because you can fire a ray. And we'll fire it over here. And then we'll rotate it, and you can see our light ray came in the top, it bounced over there, hit over on the other side, and came out the top over on this side here. And you can fire multiple rays. It gets confusing pretty quickly. But you can see we're getting all of our light return out the top that we're putting in the stone. And I'm double clicking on this to reset the view because we'll clear the rays. If I'm at an angle here, then it will fire the ray from the angle perspective that you're looking at from this stone, or from this view. So we're firing it over on this angle now, and then I'll fire a ray vertical pretty close to it. But you can see when we're coming in at an angle, our light, even though it's hitting in the same spot on the inside, we're hitting down here and coming out, and we're still getting, we're like hitting off the girdle even. That's interesting. but actually that light eventually comes out below the girdle on the outside here, so that light technically, it's losing that light at that angle. But this is a useful tool if you have like a bicolor stone and you're trying to design something where the colors don't mix. You want to know where the light's going to bounce. Yes, Karen. So if you just, the file print, and this has everything that you need to cut the stone if you go to print, and then you can just print this. This is a PDF. See you, Chris. Your chat just popped up, so the delay between you saying that and me saying goodbye is the delay on the screen. Oh, and there's so many other tools. It's hard to talk about all of them, but there's also frosted facets are pretty popular now. And there's a tool here where you can just click on a set of facets and frost them. You might be able to do individual ones, I'm not sure, but if you want those ones frosted, then you can see that changes the look of that pretty drastically. And so since that's a stone. I don't know if I'll ever cut the stone. It's one of those things where it takes an order of magnitude more time to design a stone than it does to cut one. And so these are some of the designs that I have saved on my computer from various people and online repositories. One of the ones that I just made was, what did I call it? 612. I thought this one looked kind of neat. It's got kind of a star pattern on the top. I was just messing around yesterday. This is free ag again, as usual. But let's see, I think I have someone put a design. You can do things like create a bumblebee, where if you have just a lot of facets around the outside to make kind of a baseline thing, and then cut in your other design. You can make an animal or pretty much any shape you want. And so, Karen, for the frosted facets here, it's good to note that you can only frost the facets that you program in here. There's another type of frosting where you frost the facet junctions, and let's see, we'll just do a simple SRB. So if you want to frost the facets, then you can frost them here. But a lot of people have been starting to frost like the facet junctions between the angles. And if you want to do that, then there's another program that's also free, but you got to find it, called, I don't remember what it's called, but it's essentially a frosting tool that's only Windows only, so I haven't tried it. But you can use that to automatically calculate the facet junctions that you want to frost to make more kind of a line pattern rather than trying to manually do it, which could be a pain if you have lots of little facets. I haven't tried it, so I don't know how that program works, but people are using it, and it's popular. It's on like version 6 or something. And actually, so this is a standard round brilliant. As you can see with quartz, it actually doesn't look that good, and it windows fairly quickly. I have this tilted at, you just start to tilt it a few degrees, and we're starting to get windowing out of the side of the stone. So the standard round brilliant isn't always the answer to everything. I mean, it looks pretty good, and a higher stone, a higher refractive index stone. But even that, you get some windowing. The designs that I have are ones that I've downloaded. I don't think it came with any, but there is this thing called data view, which I'm trying to remember if I had to make a link to that or if that came with it. But data view, which you can access there or down here, is actually linked to like all of the diagrams that are available at facetdesign.org, I think it's called. So if we click on it, I guess it's not that one. So we click on this button down here, and this will go to all of the facets that you can possibly imagine in any outline. If we want to load up a pair, then you can come here and try to find something in a refractive index that works for you. And I will say that these refractive indexes that are listed aren't necessarily the ones that will actually work for that design. But we have a lot of them to choose from. So we'll choose Pendelocure. So you load that up and put it in. That's not too bad for a quartz. It's a pretty tall stone though. But yeah, that's something that you can access. And in order to get back, you have to kind of click up here to get to your default. But if you don't have these diagrams or you don't want to download a bunch of them, you can go here and browse to your heart's content for all the emerald cuts that you can possibly want. All the variations from cushion cut to typical and length to width of 2:1. Big chunky, narrow emeralds. But you can see in this emerald, you get a lot of windowing out the side. But the point of the point of an emerald cut isn't necessarily to make a big flashy design. It's more for color than style, I guess. And the step cuts, like for the emerald cuts here, are not flashy. And some of these designs aren't publicly available. I got them from other people online. Some of them are. And some of them I went and remade. So the Simple Portuguese by Jeff Graham, you can find this diagram online, or the cutting directions online. But I recreated it in GemCutStudio so that I would have it and be able to access it and change things like the material that I'm going to be cutting it in and all that to see how it would look at various performances. And recreating diagrams is a pretty useful skill to have as well once you get familiar with all the how to recreate numbers that you see. Like this, you can see on the 48 degrees, we can just plug that in, and then you kind of look at the numbers that you see. It's like 96, 6, 12, 18, so all of those are separated by 6, and so that would be 16 symmetry, so we get 16 numbers between 96 and 95. It's hard to demonstrate recreating a diagram over the computer because then I have to have the diagram pulled up as well. But that may be a useful exercise to do if you haven't used GCS before, is to find a diagram online or cutting instructions, and rather than just downloading the file, if you recreate it, then you can start to learn better how things go. Like Tic Tac is another one that's from Jeff Graham, and I think if I print it, so I gave him the credit in the authors. 2000 is when a date that I saw on his website for, I don't know if that's when he designed it or when he released it, but this one I had to recreate from the cutting instructions that I found online. And so you learn how to do like, okay, I need a square cut, I need to cushion the corners here, and that's just basically making a four-fold symmetry around the corners there, changing it to 36, 12, 84, and 60, and going from there. Let's see, is there any other... oh, if you're starting from scratch, like I made a round here, but if you wanted to make a emerald cut or a rectangle from the get-go, you can come down here to the design area and set starting ratios. And so you can have your length be 2 times your width, and that automatically creates a rectangle for you. Or if you want it to be 1.25, then it makes a slightly chunkier rectangle. And that's a good way to start rather than trying to... It's just a shortcut, basically, so you don't have to do this. And it sets your thing precisely, so you don't have to guesstimate. And then you can see it automatically split the girdle to be 2 different directions, because you have to change the height between the two, 9648 and 2472. Yeah, Lisa, that's the obsidian I did. It's a cool design, and it worked well for the obsidian. On the cutting on his website, which is on like archive.org, that you have to access it through now. But he said, I think he made it for really dark garnet that didn't have a lot of light play, and so it was more about the reflection of the facets than it was getting a flashy stone. But I think it works pretty well for the obsidian as well. And if I'll open one more here. So I was messing around with the Portuguese cut, trying to make kind of a swirly pattern. I don't know how that would look. But say you had this set of facets and you wanted them to, instead of meeting at this junction, you wanted them to meet at this junction. There is and you can go back in and select any tier that you want, or select it from here, and you can edit it, delete it, do all that stuff. So I'm editing this tier now, and you can see you want to come over to where that little circle thing was. If I want to meet here rather than here and overcut this a little bit, rather than try and adjust the angles, which if I adjust the angles, then that also makes my pavilion narrower. Maybe I don't want to do that. We'll reset that, edit that tier. There's this thing called add meet. If we make this bigger, so we're going to add a meet, and you can see that got rid of some stuff down here. I added a meet so that I'm setting this set of facets to meet here at the girdle, so I have a level girdle again. And then I can add another meet, and I can set it to meet here, which is, oh, that's not what it was. Maybe I want to meet here. Nope. Okay, starting there, add meet. There. You can set it to meet a specific location where you won't overcut your girdle. That's kind of an advanced feature that I don't, as you can see, I don't always have the hang on. I don't have the hang of of. But it makes it a lot easier if you're designing something like a bumblebee or something. You might want to have a set point, and with only one bead in there, then I can come over to the angle and I can change it to be any angle I want, from 0 to basically disappearing. So I can come in this way and set it that way and do a fine adjustment to move it smaller, or I can come back down here to about where it was before. But that's a good way to get these fine-tuned where you want them without having to, it's very fiddly to do it other ways. And I just hit escape to cancel out of that. And yeah, so my rotated Portuguese in YAG is actually super bright. I think it could look pretty cool. My computer's chugging along here. But you can see the dispersion coming into play. So it should throw some cool colors as you go around. And lots of little facets will do that. It kind of like sparkles almost. But yeah, there's so many things you could do with this. But I think if nobody has any other questions, we can, I think there was something I was going to. So this is I designed it in YAG. There's other tools that you can do. I haven't used a lot of them, but you can scale your X and Y, where this is a round, so we can make it an oval, as squishy as we want. And you can see that throws all of the facets into disarray there. Go to nearest index to make it easier. We'll cancel that. Or if you are designing for a different refractive index, maybe you want to just change the pavilion or the crown. This is kind of like a manual optimizer, where you can just change one aspect, either the pavilion or the crown, make it taller or shallower, and you can see what that does to the design. So as you can see, making it shallower makes the stone brighter, but it will window quicker. So you want to find the balance of like just at the edge of the refractive index, but not too close where it won't window too quickly. And then once you're ready to go, it's just cutting system. That's probably the other useful thing to have if you're cutting a design that's new and kind of complicated. This one's not too tricky, but I guess we can do it. So there's a cutting assistant as well, and you can move this around. So this is our starting preform block, basically, that we started with originally. You can go by facet or by tier. So and it'll go in the order that your facet directions go in. So I'm going to cut in the girdle first, and that's going to go all the way around the stone, cutting in our girdle. And then after your girdle is complete, you go to the next facet, you'll cut in that facet, and you go all the way around. And then your next facet, so you can see you want to cut down to the girdle there, go all the way around. And then your next facet will do the kind of same thing where you cut to those facet junctions there. And you can go from tier to tier as well to go quicker if it's repetitive like this one is. And then you go to our next facet, which assumes you've transferred it and you're established. So you can see I'm establishing the stone size here, going all the way around. And then it's just a series of repetitively shallower angles, slightly askew. And then we cut in our table and you're done. But this can be very useful if you have like temporary center points or a design where that might go away. I can't. So this is Mike's design that I've cut a lot, and in his cutting assistant. So he makes a center point with this first set of facets, and then we come in and cut around the outside, or you can go the girdle first, whichever is easier. And then so that one we cut to meet those points there. Where actually I think I usually do his pavilion one and then the girdle and then those set of P2 facets. So you can see, oh, maybe that doesn't really make sense for cutting that. I can come here and move that up so that now my girdle is going to be cut second in the instructions, so that you set the stone size and then you cut down this to sort of level the girdle, basically. You can do it whichever way you want. You can move anything around. You just can't move it from pavilion to crown. And yeah, I mean, like you guys have been saying, it's just fun to play around and make things and see what works. And I found it very difficult to or design for quartz, like I said. Like this one, I think I might have been trying for quartz originally, so the refractive index down here is 162, which is close to topaz, I think. I was trying to get quartz, but it just didn't work, and it looks... it could work in quartz, it just windows a little quick for my taste, so this is in quartz now. And you can see our tilt performance drop down to 70 as you rotate it. It gets pretty bright in the middle, but then it drops off. I like to keep it, I try to keep it below like 20% windowing, ideally less than 10% windowing across the stone, but a few degrees on either side of the sort of head-on position will still look okay. And I made this design mostly by accident, just kind of messing around with symmetries and mirroring. And I haven't test cut this yet, but anyone's welcome to take a screenshot here and redesign it in GemCutStudio or print it out and cut it yourself. I've got a few other things to work on before I get to that. Let's see. So, yep, there. Thanks for joining me. That was about an hour, so it's a decent overview of GemCutStudio. Like I said, there's still a lot of cool things that I probably didn't touch on or missed or overlooked or didn't explain well enough, but if you get it, you have 30 days to play around with it, which is nice, and you can see if you're a designer at heart or if you just want to download designs to use in the future. It's a very handy tool to do like the cutting assistant or the seeing how it performs in various materials, because I didn't get into it too much, but I think I mentioned it in a video somewhere. What am I doing? If I open some of these ones that are in the facet designs, they say that they're for quartz, but a lot of time, I don't even know what this one is, but so this is supposedly for a refractive index of 1.54, and look at that thing. It's an interesting design, I suppose, but in quartz that's going to be, I don't even know what that's going to look like, but that's kind of crazy. That's windowing to the max there. Even though, even down here, it should be okay. It's because of the behavior of the crown and pavilion people just want to make a fancy stone, I guess. So you got to be careful about choosing designs from the internet. It's like any internet information that you get, you got to trust but verify, I guess, nowadays. So, okay, I'll end it here. Hope you learned something, and look into the stone. Look into the... I'm distracted by it already. Yeah, thanks for hanging out, everybody. I'm just going to end it.